3 black SUVs rolled into the dusty compound like thunder on wheels. Doors opened. Men in expensive suits stepped out. Everyone froze. Inside her tiny room, Sarah's heart pounded. She wasn't expecting anyone. Nobody visited her. Nobody even knew her like that. Then a man in a crisp white shirt approached. His eyes locked onto her. "Are you Sarah?" he asked. She nodded, confused. "The old man you've been feeding," he continued, "is my father." Sarah's world tilted. That homeless man she fed every day was someone's father? A rich man's father? "Thank you for taking care of him," the man said firmly. "My name is David, and from today everything changes." Sarah didn't know it yet, but her life was about to transform in ways she never imagined. One act of kindness was about to unlock doors she didn't even know existed. If you're enjoying Sarah's story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Comment below where you're watching from. Next chapter is coming up next. Sarah wiped down the last table at Mama Chen's noodle house, her feet aching after another 12-hour shift. The small restaurant in Chicago's Chinatown district was always busy, always demanding. Her black work uniform clung to her from the heat of the kitchen and the humidity of the summer evening. She glanced at the clock. 8:30 p.m. Time for her nightly routine. "Sarah, you leaving?" Mama Chen called from behind the counter. "Yes, ma'am. See you tomorrow." Mama Chen handed her a takeout container, still warm. "For your friend again?" Sarah smiled softly. "Yes. Thank you." "You good girl," Mama Chen said, shaking her head. "Too good. You barely have money yourself." Sarah didn't respond. She took the container and stepped into the warm Chicago night. The walk to the abandoned warehouse was only 10 minutes. She'd made this journey every evening for the past 3 months. At first, she'd been scared. The area wasn't safe after dark. But something inside her wouldn't let her stop. She found him in the same spot, sitting against the crumbling brick wall of the old warehouse. His clothes were torn and dirty. His gray hair was matted. But his eyes, when he looked up, were gentle. "Hello, Mr. Robert," Sarah said softly. The old man's face lit up like sunrise. "My angel," he whispered. "You came back." "I always come back," Sarah said, kneeling beside him. She opened the container. Steam rose from the beef noodles inside. "Eat while it's hot." Robert's hands shook as he took the food. "God bless you, child. God bless you." Sarah watched him eat. She always did. Something about seeing him fed made the exhaustion worth it. Made the empty wallet worth it. Made everything worth it. "Why you always cry when you eat?" Sarah asked gently. Robert paused, a tear rolling down his weathered cheek. "Because I remember," he said quietly. "I remember when I used to eat at tables. With family. With people who loved me." Sarah's chest tightened. "What happened?" Robert shook his head. "I don't remember everything. My mind plays tricks. Sometimes I wake up and don't know my name. Don't know where I am. But you remember me?" Robert nodded firmly. I remember. Because you're the only one who sees me." They sat in comfortable silence while Robert finished eating. When he was done, Sarah stood. "I have to go home now," she said. "But I'll see you tomorrow." "You promise?" "I promise." As Sarah walked back through the dark streets toward her tiny studio apartment, she thought about Robert's words. "You're the only one who sees me." How many people walked past him every day? How many looked right through him like he was invisible? She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped into the small space that was barely bigger than a closet. A mattress on the floor, a small table, a hot plate. That was it. But it was hers. And tomorrow, she'd wake up, go to work, and bring food to Robert again. Because that's what humans did for each other. At least, that's what they should do. Sarah didn't know that tomorrow, 3 black SUVs would change everything. The next evening started like any other. Sarah finished her shift, collected the takeout container from Mama Chen, and began her walk to the warehouse. But when she arrived, Robert wasn't alone. 3 massive black SUVs were parked near the warehouse. Men in dark suits stood around them like soldiers. And in the center of it all stood a man who looked completely out of place in this neighborhood. He wore an expensive white shirt and dress pants. His watch probably cost more than Sarah made in a year. He was talking on his phone, his voice sharp and businesslike. Sarah froze. Her instinct screamed at her to turn around and leave. But then she saw Robert. He was sitting on the ground, pressed against the wall, his eyes wide with fear. The suited men were keeping their distance, but their presence was clearly terrifying him. Sarah's fear evaporated. She walked forward quickly. "Robert!" she called out. Robert's head snapped toward her voice. Relief flooded his face. "Sarah!" The man in the white shirt ended his call and turned to look at her. His eyes were intense, calculating. He studied her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "Are you Sarah?" Sarah's heart pounded. "Yes." "Who are you?" The man took a step closer. "My name is David Chen. And that man," he pointed to Robert, "is my father." Sarah's mouth fell open. "Your father?" David nodded slowly. "We've been searching for him for 2 weeks. He suffers from severe dementia. When his episodes happen, he wanders off and forgets who he is." Sarah looked at Robert, then back at David. "He's been here for months." "I know," David said quietly. "I went to where he stays. When I finally found him today, he described a woman who brings him food every evening." "He described you." Sarah felt everyone's eyes on her. The security guards, David, even some neighbors who had gathered at a distance to watch. "I just wanted to help," Sarah said softly. David's expression softened slightly. "You did more than help. You kept him alive." One of the security guards stepped forward. "Sir, we should get him to the hospital." David raised his hand. "Wait!" He turned back to Sarah. "He trusts you. When we tried to approach him earlier, he became aggressive. But when you arrived, he calmed down. Will you help us get him into the car?" Sarah nodded immediately. She walked over to Robert and knelt beside him. "Robert," she said gently, "these people want to help you. This man says he's your son." Robert looked confused. "Son?" "Yes," David said, stepping closer carefully. "It's me, Dad. It's David." Robert stared at him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then something flickered in Robert's eyes. Recognition, maybe, or just the ghost of a memory. "David," he whispered. David's voice cracked. "Yes, Dad. I'm here." Robert began to cry. Deep, heavy sobs that shook his shoulders. Sarah held his hand while David knelt on his other side. Together, they helped Robert to his feet and guided him toward the SUV. As they walked, David glanced at Sarah. "Thank you," he said simply. Sarah nodded, thinking this was goodbye, thinking her strange connection to this homeless man was over. She had no idea that getting Robert into that car was just the beginning. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, watching the SUVs prepare to leave. She felt oddly empty, like something important was ending. David helped Robert into the middle vehicle, speaking to him in low, comforting tones. Then he stepped back out and walked toward Sarah. "Do you work nearby?" David asked. "Yes," Sarah replied. "At Mama Chen's noodle house. About 10 minutes from here." David's eyebrows rose. "Mama Chen's? That's my aunt's restaurant." Sarah's eyes widened. "Your aunt?" "Yes. My family owns several restaurants in Chinatown. Mama Chen is my father's sister." David paused. "What do you do there?" "I'm a waitress," Sarah said quietly. David studied her for a moment. "How much do they pay you?" Sarah hesitated. The question felt too personal. But something in David's eyes made her answer. $8.50 an hour. Plus tips." David's jaw tightened. "And you've been using that money to feed my father?" "It's okay," Sarah said quickly. "I wanted to help." "Every single day?" Sarah nodded. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Aunt Chen, it's David. I need to ask you about one of your employees." "Sarah." He listened. "Yes, her. I see. Thank you." He ended the call and looked at Sarah with an expression she couldn't read. "My aunt says you're the hardest worker she has. Always on time. Never complains. She also says you live alone and barely have enough to survive." Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "I manage." "You've been spending half your daily wage on my father," David said. It wasn't a question. Sarah didn't know what to say. David took a deep breath. "Get in the car." "What?" "Please," David said. "Get in the car. Come with us." Sarah shook her head. "I can't. I need to get home. I have work tomorrow." Colin's sick, David said firmly. This is important. But, Sarah, David's voice softened. You saved my father's life. The least you can do is let me say thank you properly. Please. Sarah looked at the SUV where Robert sat. Through the window, she could see him looking back at her, his hand pressed against the glass. Against her better judgment, Sarah nodded. She climbed into the SUV, sitting beside Robert. The old man immediately grabbed her hand. Don't leave, he whispered. I won't, Sarah promised. David got in on the other side. The convoy began to move. As they drove through Chicago, Sarah watched the city change. They left the rough neighborhoods behind. Buildings became taller, cleaner. Streets became wider. This was a part of Chicago Sarah rarely saw. Where are we going? She asked. My home, David said. To get my father cleaned up and checked by our family doctor. And to talk to you about something important. Sarah's stomach twisted with anxiety. What do you want to talk about? David looked at her directly. I want to know about the woman who showed my father kindness when the rest of the world ignored him. And then, he paused, I want to offer you something. Offer me what? A future, David said simply. Sarah's heart began to race. She had no idea what he meant, but she was about to find out. The gate opened slowly, revealing a world Sarah had only seen in movies. The mansion was enormous, with white columns and perfectly manicured lawns. Lights illuminated the building like a palace. Fountains sparkled in the evening light. Sarah forgot to breathe. This is your home, she whispered. David nodded. This is where my father lived before he got lost. The SUV stopped in front of the main entrance. Staff members appeared immediately, moving with practiced efficiency. A doctor arrived within minutes. Let's get you inside, Dad, David said gently. But Robert wouldn't let go of Sarah's hand. She comes too, he insisted. Of course, David said. They entered the mansion. The marble floors gleamed. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. Everything smelled clean and expensive. Sarah felt completely out of place in her stained work uniform and worn shoes. A woman in a nurse's uniform approached. Mr. Chun, the bathroom is ready for him. David turned to Sarah. We're going to help him clean up. Would you mind waiting in the living room? I'll come find you in a few minutes. Sarah nodded, relieved to have a moment alone. A staff member led her to a living room that was bigger than her entire apartment building. She sat carefully on the edge of a white sofa, afraid to touch anything. She thought about running, just walking out the front door and never looking back. This world wasn't hers. These people weren't her people. But then she remembered Robert's hand in hers. His tears, his relief at seeing her. 20 minutes later, David returned. He'd changed into casual clothes, jeans, and a simple black shirt. Somehow, he still looked expensive. The doctor is examining him now, David said, sitting across from Sarah. He's malnourished and dehydrated, but otherwise stable. That's good, Sarah said quietly. David leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Sarah, I need to tell you about my father's condition. He has early-onset Alzheimer's with acute episodes. When the episodes hit, he forgets everything. His name, his family, his entire life. Sarah's chest tightened. That's terrible. It happens once or twice a year, David continued. We have systems in place now, trackers, alerts, security. But this time, he slipped away before anyone noticed. By the time we realized he was gone, he'd removed his medical bracelet and disappeared into the city. For 3 months, Sarah said softly. Yes. David's voice was heavy. 3 months of my father living on the streets. Cold nights, hunger, danger. And through all of that, one person showed him consistent kindness. You. Sarah felt tears building. Anyone would have done the same. No, David said firmly. They wouldn't. Thousands of people walked past my father. You were the only one who stopped. Silence stretched between them. My aunt told me you're barely surviving yourself, David said. That you live in a tiny studio with no furniture. That you work 12-hour shifts and can barely afford rent. Sarah looked down at her hands. I'm fine. And yet you still found a way to feed someone else. David stood and walked to the window, looking out at his property. I built a business empire worth over $200 million. I employ thousands of people. I've been called brilliant, ruthless, successful. He turned back to Sarah. But I didn't even know my own father was suffering on the streets for 3 months. That's not your fault, Sarah said. Maybe not, David replied. But what I do next is definitely my choice. He walked back and sat down again, his eyes intense. Sarah, I want to change your life. Sarah's heart pounded. Change my life? What do you mean? David pulled out his phone and made a call. Aunt Chun, it's David again. I need you to do something for me. Tomorrow morning, I need you to promote Sarah to restaurant manager. Sarah's eyes went wide. She shook her head frantically. No, I can't. David held up a hand, still on the phone. Yes, I'm serious. Full authority. And triple her current pay. He paused. Because I said so. I'll explain everything tomorrow. He ended the call. David, I can't be a manager. Sarah protested. I don't know how to run a restaurant. I just serve food. You'll learn, David said calmly. And you'll have support. But your aunt will hate this. The other staff will hate this. They'll think. Sarah stopped. They'll think what? David asked. Sarah's face burned. They'll think I'm getting special treatment because of something inappropriate. David's expression hardened. Let them think whatever they want. I know the truth. You helped my father when you had nothing to gain. That shows character, leadership, integrity. Those are the qualities I need in people who represent my family's businesses. I don't understand, Sarah whispered. David leaned back. My family owns 14 restaurants across Chicago. We also own a hotel chain, 3 catering companies, and a food distribution business. But lately, I've been so focused on expansion that I've lost sight of what matters. People. Human connection. Kindness. He looked at her directly. You reminded me of that. Sarah felt overwhelmed. This is too much. It's too fast. I know it seems that way, David said. But I've learned that when you find good people, you don't wait. You act. He paused. However, I understand if you need time to think about it. Can I ask you something? Sarah said quietly. Anything. Why do you care so much? I mean, yes, I helped your father. But you don't know me. You don't know if I'm actually a good person, or if I'm just. Just what? David interrupted gently. Just someone who got lucky, Sarah finished. David shook his head. My aunt has watched you for a year. She told me you've never been late once. Never called in sick. You work double shifts when other people quit without complaint. You smile at rude customers. You help the kitchen staff clean, even though it's not your job. He paused. And despite barely surviving yourself, you found a way to feed a homeless man every single day for 3 months. That's not luck, Sarah. That's who you are. Tears rolled down Sarah's cheeks. Before she could respond, a nurse appeared. Mr. Chun, your father is asking for Sarah. David and Sarah stood immediately and followed the nurse to a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. Robert lay in bed, clean now, wearing fresh pajamas. His gray hair had been washed and combed. He looked 20 years younger. When he saw Sarah, his face lit up. My angel, he said softly. Sarah rushed to his bedside and took his hand. How do you feel? Better, Robert said, but confused. This place. He looked around. David says this is my home, but I don't remember it. You will, David said from the doorway. The doctor says the episode is fading. Your memory should return fully within a few days. Robert looked at Sarah. Will you stay? Until I remember. Sarah glanced at David, uncertain. Please stay, David said. We have plenty of room. And my father needs you. Sarah realized she couldn't say no. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Sarah woke up in a bedroom bigger than her entire apartment. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then everything came rushing back. The mansion, David, Robert, the job offer. It all felt like a dream. A gentle knock on the door made her jump. Miss Sarah, a voice called. Breakfast is ready. Sarah climbed out of the enormous bed and looked at herself in the mirror. She was still wearing her work uniform from yesterday. She had nothing else. She opened the door to find a young woman in a maid's uniform. Good morning, the woman said with a warm smile. My name is Lisa. Mr. Chun asked me to help you with anything you need. I don't need anything, Sarah said quickly. Lisa's smile didn't fade. Mr. Chun also asked me to give you this. She handed Sarah a credit card for clothes and personal items. He said you're a guest here and should be comfortable. Sarah stared at the card. I can't accept this. He said you'd say that, Lisa replied. He also said to tell you it's not charity. It's basic hospitality. Would you let a guest stay in your home without offering them what they need? Sarah had no answer to that. Breakfast is downstairs whenever you're ready, Lisa said. And Mr. Chun is waiting to speak with you. 30 minutes later, Sarah sat at a dining table that could seat 20 people. Robert was there, eating eggs and toast. David sat across from them, reading something on his tablet. Good morning, David said, looking up. How did you sleep? Fine, Sarah lied. She barely slept at all. Robert smiled at her. Sarah, you stayed. I promised I would, she said softly. David set down his tablet. Sarah, I need to talk to you about the restaurant situation. Sarah's stomach twisted. Did your aunt refuse? No, David said. She agreed, but she wasn't happy about it. I can't do this, Sarah said quickly. It's going to cause too many problems. Problems that need to happen, David replied firmly. My aunt has been running that restaurant the same way for 20 years. It's time for changes. Fresh perspective. New energy. But I don't know what I'm doing. You'll learn, David said again. And I'll personally help you. Think of it as a training period. Sarah opened her mouth to protest again, but Robert interrupted. Why are you fighting blessings, child? She turned to him. What? You helped me when you had nothing, Robert said gently. Now someone wants to help you. Why is that wrong? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Because I'm scared. What if I fail? What if I mess everything up? Then you'll learn from it, David said. But I don't think you will. I have good instincts about people, Sarah. And my instincts say you're exactly who we need. After breakfast, David drove Sarah to Mama Chen's noodle house. When they arrived, the staff was already there, setting up for the day. Mama Chen came out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. When she saw David, her expression was unreadable. Auntie, David said respectfully, thank you for agreeing to this. Mama Chen's eyes moved to Sarah. You saved my brother, she said quietly. That means something to this family. She clapped her hands sharply. Everyone, listen up. The staff gathered around, curious and confused. This is Sarah, Mama Chen announced. Starting today, she is the manager of this restaurant. You will respect her decisions and follow her instructions. Is that clear? Silence. Then whispers. Then a few uncertain nods. One waitress, Kim, who had always been cold to Sarah, raised her hand. But she's just a waitress. Why should we listen to her? David stepped forward. Because I said so. And I own this restaurant. The first week as manager was brutal. Kim made sure of it. Every instruction Sarah gave was questioned. Every decision was undermined. When Sarah asked Kim to reorganize the dining area, Kim did it wrong on purpose. When Sarah created a new schedule to give everyone fair shifts, Kim complained to the other staff that Sarah was playing favorites. Sarah tried to stay calm. She tried to be fair. She tried to lead with kindness, just like she treated Robert. But kindness, she was learning, was sometimes seen as weakness. On Thursday evening, Sarah stayed late to review the books. David had taught her the basics of restaurant finances, and she was determined to prove she could handle this job. That's when she found it, a discrepancy in the cash register. Money missing. Not a huge amount, just $50 here, $70 there. But it had been happening for months. Sarah's hands shook as she double-checked the numbers. Someone was stealing. She printed the evidence and put it in an envelope. Tomorrow, she would have to confront the staff. But when she left the restaurant that night, she found Kim waiting outside. You think you're so special, don't you? Kim hissed. Sarah stopped walking. I don't want any trouble, Kim. Too bad, Kim shot back. You're causing trouble just by existing. You think we don't know what you did to get this job? Sleeping with the boss. Sarah's face burned. That's not true. Sure, Kim sneered. A poor waitress suddenly becomes manager because she's such a good person? Nobody's buying it. Sarah's patience finally snapped. I helped his father. That's all. And I'm trying to do a good job here, but you're making it impossible. Good, Kim said. Because you don't belong here. You're nothing, Sarah. And everyone knows it. Sarah felt tears building, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of Kim. She walked past her without another word. When Sarah returned to the mansion, she found David and Robert in the study. Robert's memory had been returning gradually. He remembered David now, remembered his life, but he still remembered Sarah most clearly. "You look upset," Robert observed immediately. Sarah tried to smile. "Just tired." "Don't lie to me," Robert said gently. "I may forget things, but I can still read faces." David stood. "What happened?" Sarah hesitated. Then she told them everything. The resistance from the staff, Kim's accusations, the missing money she discovered. David's jaw tightened. "I'll fire her tomorrow." "No," Sarah said quickly. "Please don't." "Why not?" "She's treating you terribly and stealing from the restaurant." "Because firing her will just make things worse," Sarah explained. "The staff will say I got rid of her because I felt threatened. They'll turn her into a martyr." David studied her. "Then what do you suggest?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Give me 2 more weeks. Let me handle this my way. If it doesn't work, then you can step in." "And how will you handle it?" Robert asked curiously. Sarah thought about it. "With truth," she said finally. "And with evidence." The next day, Sarah called a staff meeting. Everyone gathered in the closed restaurant before opening. "I know some of you don't think I deserve this position," Sarah began. "I know there are rumors about how I got promoted, so I want to be completely transparent with you." She told them the full story. About Robert, about feeding him every day, about how David had found her by accident, not through any romantic relationship. Some faces softened. Others remained skeptical. Then Sarah pulled out the envelope. "I also found evidence of theft from the cash register. Whoever is doing this has one chance to come forward today. If you admit it now, we'll work out a payment plan and you'll keep your job. If you don't, and I find out who it is, you'll be fired and prosecuted." The room went silent. Hours passed. No one confessed. Sarah felt her heart sink. Maybe her approach was too soft. Maybe David was right about needing to be harsh. The restaurant opened for lunch service. Sarah threw herself into work, seating customers, helping in the kitchen, doing everything she could to keep busy and avoid thinking about her failure. Then, at 2 p.m., during the afternoon lull, Kim approached her. "I need to talk to you," Kim said quietly. "In private." Sarah's stomach dropped. She led Kim to the small office in the back and closed the door. Kim stood with her arms crossed, not meeting Sarah's eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. "It was me," Kim finally whispered. Sarah felt like the air had been knocked from her lungs. "You stole the money." Kim nodded, tears streaming down her face. "My mom is sick, really sick. The treatments aren't covered by insurance, and I couldn't afford them. I was desperate." "Why didn't you ask for help?" Sarah asked gently. "Because I was too proud," Kim sobbed. "And then you got promoted and I got so angry. You were just like me, struggling, barely surviving. But suddenly you had everything and I had nothing. I took it out on you and I'm sorry." Sarah sat down heavily. "Kim, I understand medical bills. My parents died because we couldn't afford proper care. But stealing is not the answer." "I know," Kim said. "I know. And I'll pay it all back. I'll work extra shifts. I'll do anything. Just please don't fire me. My mom needs me." Sarah thought carefully. "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to pay back what you stole, but not all at once. $20 per week until it's cleared. And you're going to apologize to the staff for spreading rumors about me." Kim's eyes widened. "You're not firing me?" "No," Sarah said. "But if it happens again, you're done." "Understood." Kim nodded frantically. "Thank you. Thank you so much. And Kim, about your mom's medical bills. Let me talk to David. Maybe there's a way the company can help." Kim broke down completely, crying into her hands. That evening, Sarah told David what happened. She expected him to be angry about her decision to keep Kim employed. Instead, he smiled. "You did exactly the right thing." "Really?" "Yes," David said. "You showed mercy but also set boundaries. That's real leadership." He paused. "And yes, we can help with her mother's medical bills. I'll set up a fund for staff medical emergencies." Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest. "Thank you." Over the next few days, the atmosphere at the restaurant shifted. Kim apologized publicly to the staff. She admitted to the theft and praised Sarah for showing her mercy. The other employees began to see Sarah differently. Not as an outsider who didn't belong, but as someone who genuinely cared about them. Business improved. Reviews got better. Staff morale rose. At the mansion, Robert's memory continued to return. He was almost completely back to his old self. He spent his days reading, working in the garden, and talking with Sarah. One evening, he pulled Sarah aside. "You know my son has feelings for you, don't you?" Sarah's face went hot. "What? No. We're just friends." Robert laughed. "Child, I may have had memory problems, but I still have eyes. The way he looks at you isn't friendship." "Even if that's true," Sarah said carefully, "I'm not in his league. I'm just a waitress who got lucky." "You're a woman who showed humanity when others showed indifference," Robert corrected. "That's not luck. That's character." Sarah didn't know what to say. "Don't close your heart because you think you're not worthy," Robert advised. "You're more worthy than most people who are born into wealth." 2 months passed. Sarah's confidence grew. The restaurant thrived under her management. She implemented new menu items, improved customer service, and created a supportive culture among the staff. Mama Chun, initially skeptical, began to show genuine respect. "You have good instincts," she told Sarah one day. "Better than mine, maybe." But Sarah's success at work couldn't quiet the growing tension between her and David. They saw each other almost daily, sometimes at the restaurant, always at the mansion, where Sarah had effectively become part of the family. They shared meals, watched movies with Robert, talked late into the night about business, life, and dreams. Sarah felt herself falling for him, but she held back, terrified of the gap between their worlds. One Saturday evening, David invited Sarah to a charity gala. "It's for homeless shelters," he explained. "Given what happened with my father, I'm making it a priority cause. I'd like you there as my guest." "I don't have anything to wear to something like that," Sarah said. "Lisa will help you," David replied. "Please come. It would mean a lot to me." Sarah agreed, though anxiety churned in her stomach. The gala was at a 5-star hotel downtown. Sarah wore a simple but elegant navy dress that Lisa had helped her choose. When she descended the mansion staircase, David stood at the bottom, staring. "You look beautiful," he said softly. Sarah's heart raced. "Thank you." At the gala, Sarah felt out of place among Chicago's elite. Women in designer gowns, men in expensive tuxedos, conversations about investments and vacation homes. But David never left her side. He introduced her to everyone as the woman who saved my father's life. He spoke about her with such warmth and respect that Sarah began to relax. During dinner, a middle-aged businessman named Frank leaned toward Sarah. "So you're the famous Sarah. David talks about you constantly." "He does?" Sarah asked, surprised. "Oh, yes," Frank's wife added. "He told us how you fed his father every day despite barely having enough to eat yourself." "That's remarkable. Anyone would have done the same," Sarah said automatically. "No," Frank said firmly. "They wouldn't. And that's why David is so impressed by you." After dinner, David pulled Sarah onto the terrace. The Chicago skyline glittered before them. "Thank you for coming tonight," David said. "Thank you for inviting me," Sarah replied. "Though I still feel like I don't belong in places like this." "Why do you keep saying that?" David asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Because it's true," Sarah said. "Look at me, David. I grew up poor. I dropped out of college because I couldn't afford it. I have no family, no connections, nothing. You're a millionaire businessman. We're from different worlds." "I don't care about any of that," David said intensely. "But I do," Sarah whispered. "Because everyone else will care. They'll say I'm with you for your money. They'll say I used your father to get to you. They'll—" "Sarah," David interrupted, taking her hands. "I don't care what they say. Do you know why?" She shook her head, tears building. "Because you're the most genuine person I've ever met," David said. "You don't pretend. You don't play games. You just exist with this incredible kindness and strength." He paused. "I've dated women from my world, wealthy, connected, polished, and every single one of them saw me as a prize to win or a bank account to access." "David!" "But you," he continued. You look at me like I'm just a person. You challenge me. You make me want to be better. And that's why I'm falling in love with you. Sarah's breath caught. You can't. I can, David said firmly. And I am. Sarah stood frozen on the terrace, David's words echoing in her mind. I'm falling in love with you. Say something, David pleaded softly. I'm scared, Sarah admitted. I'm scared that this is too good to be true. That I'll wake up and it'll all be gone. That I'll lose everything again. David squeezed her hands gently. I can't promise you'll never feel pain or loss. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise that whatever happens, you won't face it alone. Sarah looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. I have been for a while. But I didn't want to admit it because I didn't think I deserved this. You deserve everything, David said. He leaned down and kissed her softly. The Chicago skyline sparkled around them, but Sarah only felt the warmth of his lips and the safety of his arms. When they returned to the mansion that night, Robert was waiting up for them. He took one look at their faces and smiled knowingly. Finally, he said. I was wondering how long you two would dance around each other. Sarah laughed through happy tears. Were we that obvious? Painfully, Robert replied. Now come here and tell an old man the good news properly. They sat with Robert for hours, talking and laughing. For the first time in years, Sarah felt like she had a family. The next 6 months were transformative. Sarah and David's relationship deepened. They took things slow, building friendship alongside romance. David taught Sarah about business. Sarah taught David about staying grounded. The restaurant continued to thrive. Sarah was promoted to oversee 3 of the Chin family restaurants. Kim became one of her most trusted assistants, her mother's health improving thanks to the company's medical fund. Robert's condition stabilized. The episodes still came occasionally, but less frequently. And when they did, Sarah was always there to bring him back. One evening, Robert pulled Sarah aside. I need to tell you something, he said seriously. What is it, Papa? Sarah asked. She started calling him that months ago. When I was lost on those streets, I prayed every night. I prayed for someone to see me, to remember I was human. His eyes filled with tears. And then you showed up with your kind smile and your warm food. You were the answer to my prayers. Papa, let me finish, Robert said gently. You saved my life. But more than that, you saved my son. He was becoming hard, cold, focused only on money and success. You reminded him what matters. He did the same for me, Sarah said. I was just surviving. He taught me I could thrive. Robert smiled. That's how love works. You make each other better. That Christmas, David proposed to Sarah in front of the decorated tree at the mansion. It wasn't elaborate or showy, just him, kneeling with a simple diamond ring, asking her to be his partner in all things. Yes, Sarah said through tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony. Sarah wore a simple white dress. Robert walked her down the aisle, his eyes clear and bright. As Sarah and David exchanged vows, she thought about the journey that brought her here. A homeless man by a warehouse. A container of noodles. One small act of kindness that changed everything. Years later, Sarah and David established a foundation helping homeless individuals with mental health issues. They opened shelters across Chicago, created job training programs, changed thousands of lives. But Sarah never forgot where she came from. Every Tuesday, she volunteered at the shelter, serving food and talking with people the world had forgotten. Because she understood something important. Everyone deserves to be seen. And sometimes, seeing someone is the most powerful thing you can do. The end. Thank you so much for watching Sarah's incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories. Comment below and tell us, what act of kindness have you done or witnessed that changed someone's life? Share your story with our community. Where are you watching from? We read every comment. Don't forget to check out our other amazing stories in the playlist. See you in the next one. God bless.